All right, it is that time of the morning. We'll get this party started. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. We will, let me turn off.
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right, good.
You, Chef?
I'm doing all right today. My allergies are real bad today. But other than that, I'm good. All right. We're going to talk about menu price and all of that good stuff. Hold on. There we go. We're going to watch this little quick video on
Hey everybody, Ryan Gromfin here, author, speaker, chef, restaurateur, and the founder of therestaurantboss.com as well as restaurantcoachingclub.com. Today we're going to talk about something very, very important to your restaurant, food cost, and something I get a lot of questions about, which is why do we need to know the food cost in our restaurant and how do we determine it? So we're going to show you not only why you need to know food cost, but we're going to also go over all of the food cost formulas and calculations that you need to know in your restaurant for the rest of your life. Basically, food cost determines your profitability. Without knowing how much the items on your menu cost and what your food cost is at the end of your different periods, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to track and run a highly profitable restaurant and know where you need to make adjustments and changes. It kind of creates the baseline for us. Also, ultimately, really, a lower food cost means higher profit. So it's something you should definitely be tracking on a very consistent basis. It allows you to properly price out your menu items. I always say no one would go into a tire store and no one would sell you tires from a tire store unless they knew exactly how much every tire on their shelves costs. When you go into a tire store and try to negotiate with the salesperson there, what's the first thing they do? They go back to their computer, they look up a few things. What they're looking up is exactly what they paid for those tires. And I can't believe how many restaurant operators and chefs and general managers and owners don't know exactly in real time how much every menu item on their menu costs them to prepare. That information allows us to optimize your menu. You might have heard the term menu engineering. It's amazing the amount of profits that we could increase in a restaurant by doing nothing but moving things around on a menu and maybe putting a box or bold type or having a server verbalize a certain item on a menu.
And we saw a video, it was the guy with the glasses, and it was hooked up to a computer, and we saw that one video of where they just moved around stuff, and I think it was some fish dish, I believe, that he put up at the top, and just by moving that one dish, it totally changed how much he was selling of that dish. So, and putting boxes and all of that. So anyway.
But we don't want to start doing that. Actually, we can't start doing that until we know exactly how much every item on your menu costs. And then also, food cost is not how much you spend on food. That's another myth or a misconception that I get a lot is, well, isn't food cost just how much I spent on food this month? And no, that is not correct. You will get very false and very varying numbers if that's how you're determining your food cost. So let's get right into this. There's really two types of food costs in your restaurant or bar. The first is plate cost, which is extraordinarily simple to understand, and everyone, without any excuses, should know how much every plate, every drink, every glass of wine, every item in their restaurant costs. And I'm going to show you why, because it's so simple. And then period cost, which is a little more complicated, but you still need to know this in your restaurant. So when we're talking about plate cost, very, very simply, how much did it cost to prepare? How much do you sell it for? Gives you food cost. So again, how much did it cost to prepare? Divided by how much do you sell it for? Gives you the food cost. Let's look at an example here. Let's say that a hamburger costs you $2 to prepare and you sell it for $8. So 2 divided by $8 gives you 0.25. Well, very simply, all we have to do is do 0.25 times 100, which gives us 25%, which in this case would give us a food cost, or you might want to call it a plate cost for that particular hamburger. Now, figuring out how much the hamburger costs, because there's so many different components in there, that's a little more complicated, and we're going to talk about that in a different video. But for the purpose of this video, all you need to know is that the cost to prepare divided by the sales price times 100 gives you the food cost, or the plate cost. But if you want to determine your period food cost, you need to understand something called the cost of goods sold formula. That's the COGS, cost of goods sold. So here's the calculation for your cost of goods sold formula. Beginning inventory plus purchases minus ending inventory gives you usage. That's how much food you used, or beer or wine or whatever you're figuring out, but that's how much you used in that period. And then, like before, now we take the usage divided by sales, which gives us a cost of goods sold, and then we take that and multiply it by 100, which gives us our percentage. So cost of goods sold formula can be used to determine the period cost for any category in your restaurant. Like I said, you could use this for, well, here's some examples right here. You can use it to determine your food cost, your beer costs. We're going to talk about that in a second. Your wine cost, your liquor cost, as well as your merchandise cost. Now, if you notice, I separated out beer bottled and draft, as well as wine bottled and by the glass. That's how I prefer to track. I like to track as very specific data as possible, broken down into as small categories as possible, so then we can really determine if there's a problem, what's going on, or where we need to adjust prices, or where we're having success, or where we need to work a little bit. So these are the categories I recommend that you should be keeping track of in your restaurant. And this is how I recommend that we break them down. Now here's two things you really need to make sure of when we're using the cost of goods sold formula. Make sure you're comparing the correct category purchases and inventory to the correct category sales. So if we're trying to figure out beer cost, we need to make sure that we're using beer purchases, beer inventory, and then beer sales.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire,
not total sales. And then also, you need to make sure that you're comparing the correct inventory and purchases period to the correct sales period. Meaning, if we're, well here, let's look at this example. If we wanted to get a period food cost for March, here's exactly what we need to know. So again, we're talking about March here. So we need to know the March beginning inventory, and then we're going to add that to March purchases, and then we're going to subtract that from the March ending inventory, which will give us March's food usage. Now, people ask me a lot of times, how do we determine beginning inventory? Well, that's very simple. Beginning inventory is the ending inventory of the period before. So for March's beginning inventory, that's just February's ending inventory. So let's look at an example here. If beginning inventory was $5,000 in March and we purchased $24,000 in food, and then we took an ending inventory and we had $4,000 on our shelves, that means we used $25,000 in food. So now going back to that cost of goods sold calculation, we take our $25,000, which was usage, divided by March's food sales, not total sales, but March's food sales, because remember, food usage divided by food sales gives us 0.25. 0.25 times 100 gives us our 25% food cost. You can see I've got the formula down here at the bottom again for you. Let's just do a quick review. I just want to put this up on the screen for you. You can pause the video if you want to write this down again, but we're going to move on here. And I want to go over the number one question I get asked all the time, almost every day, is what should my food cost be? Well, that's very difficult to answer, and to be completely frank with you, anyone that tells you that your food cost should be between this and this, or this is an industry average, or anything like that, frankly, doesn't have enough information and doesn't really know what they're talking about, because nobody can tell you that you should have this food cost based on your type of restaurant. There's too many other factors that we need to know. And if you're interested in learning more about what those other factors are, and then ultimately a formula on how to determine what your food cost should be based on this other information, please visit my website. That's therestaurantboss.com. When you get to the home page, there's this huge green button that says Get It Now. When you click on that, you're going to be able to download completely for free what I call the foundation for.
All right. Do you mind reading this one slide?
Sure.
Thanks.
Running a restaurant means cooking on a much larger scale than a home cook would, making hundreds of dishes a day. In order to keep it running smoothly, you need to have standard procedures for making every dish, and you need to have all the ingredients and equipment involved in making your dishes in bulk. You also must decide how much to charge for each item on the menu, which you can figure out by determining how much it costs to make.
Thank you. Okay, so again, we're talking about now just the cost of making your products. And that is so important because that kind of determines how much profit you're going to be making. Because once you determine how much it is, how much it costs to make, then you can then figure out your price, so you can now figure out, okay, am I going to be able to cover my rent or cover my electric bill or what, all of those things. Do you mind reading this one as well?
Running a small cafe or restaurant can be a labor of love, but to make a profit, you need to set up a business plan and adhere to it. Brand your establishment by understanding what sets it apart from the competition, and get the word out through advertising and other marketing strategies. Set up a business plan that includes the objective of the business and the mission or concept of the cafe and the restaurant.
Thank you. So a business, they were talking about a business plan, and it's important to know exactly what you're doing when it comes to, you know, and this is what this whole class is all about, is trying to basically create a business plan and create a plan for you, so where then you could go out and open up a restaurant or have the ability to do that. And again, key success for running a business is high quality food, right? You want obviously high quality food. You know, excuse me, I've got the hiccups. I apologize. But high quality food, good customer service, and we've talked about that as well. And then, you know, comparable or good pricing. You know, and making sure that the pricing is right. Make sure it's not too expensive or too cheap, or depending on who your clientele is. Again, it's all determined on who your clientele is, or who your population, or who the people you're building this restaurant or building this business for. And that's your, you know, the individuals that you kind of were looking for. Are they blue collar workers? Are they white collar workers? Are they combination of both? Do they make $100,000? Do they make $200,000? What is it? Who your clientele is going to be. So make sure that the prices are comparable and good for your clientele, and for the quality of food. Again, you know, if you're going to have really good quality food, that's going to make the price go up a little bit. Let's see. All right, just making sure you develop a marketing plan, some way of marketing your product, making sure that you are, you know, shown on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or some social media kind of a thing, or something to get your face out there. Make sure that you you know, have your good, you know, you have a good wide variety of menus, you have good hours open, you have good prices, good, nice decor, all of that sort of stuff. That all kind of is part of running a good restaurant. Train your staff. You know, again, has anybody ever been to a restaurant or been to a place where, you know, you've had a staff member or somebody come up and they don't know what's going on. They're like, it's my first day. I wasn't trained properly, or I wasn't trained, or this is my first day. I'm kind of on my own. You know, those things cause major hiccups, because if you're not trained, then you're going to be making more mistakes, and more mistakes is going to cost me money and all of that. So making sure that you train your staff properly and you cross-train them, and having those kind of training booklets, or you know, having systems in place. And we spent a whole day on talking about systems. So making sure that, you know, all the systems that you are doing are in place to make sure that your employees know what they're doing. Do you mind reading this one?
While starting a restaurant is exciting, it is also time-consuming and one of the toughest business to successfully launch. In fact, 75% of restaurants fail in the first year. This is not meant to temper your passion, but merely to point out that if you want a successful restaurant, you will need to invest some serious time and money.
Yeah, and I mean, 75% of restaurants fail in the first year. That's a staggering number there. I mean, that's a huge number. And you've got to think about what are the reasons why, and costing out, training, money, you know, all of those things, that all goes into the factor. Plus you've got to know that, you know, I mean, this business, I mean, it's, you know, you're working a lot, and especially if it's your business, you're going to be working long hours, you know, and it's one of those things where it's just, you've got to be successful in this industry. You're going to be working those long hours at first, especially if you're running your own business. You know, the reason why you have failure is a lack of planning, plain and simple. I mean, lack of planning on many things, planning on, you know, lack of planning on training, lack of planning in general. You know, other things that could, you know, could be a problem for, you know, just spending too much money, you know, lack of training, lack of staff, not good pricing, you know, any of those things could totally screw up your business and make your restaurant fail. So you want to make sure you have the proper menu, the proper equipment, the proper pricing for your clientele, the proper staffing, the proper training, you know, all of those things. And all of that takes planning, and it takes, you know, it takes a lot of planning and making sure that, you know, everything is done correctly. The heart of the restaurant is the menu. Yeah, right? I mean, that's the reason why people are coming to the restaurant, right? They're not coming, I mean, maybe they might come for the ambiance, maybe, but they're coming to eat food, right? So the menu has to be something that, you know, that needs to be a lot of planning when it comes to the menu. And that's what this whole class is all about, is for you to kind of understand about the planning and developing the menu, and also making sure that you have a good menu mix, if you will, of items like the dogs and the stars and the things that kind of make the most money, like the plow horses that just keep going and doing their job. You need a good mix of things on the menu, because if not, if it's very, if it's not a good mix of items, then you're not going to be selling a lot of items. So you need to make it so where everybody's taste kind of gets hit, especially in your group of people that you're trying to your clientele, whoever your clientele is. Do you mind reading this one?
When developing a menu, questions to ask might include, are you going to utilize ingredients in multiple menu items? Are there any ingredients that are only used in one dish? What new ingredients will be required? Are the ingredients readily available, and will the product cost be steady during the period it will be on the menu? What is the food cost, and can the staff execute the dish effectively and consistently?
Thank you. What is the food cost? How much can they? It's those things you need to make sure that the menu items, are effective and they cost. You don't want to out cost your menu or your not employees. You don't want to have the cost too expensive for your clientele. So you need to make sure everything is balanced out. And that's just planning, and that's knowing who your customers are, and also utilizing all the items, because it would be stupid to have a item that you're only using for one dish. Let's say, I don't know, I need shiitake mushrooms only for one dish. It would be not a smart thing for me to do to have only shiitake mushrooms on one dish, because usually to buy shiitake mushrooms, I need to buy a case or a larger amount. So to buy smaller amounts, it's sometimes costs me a lot more to buy small amounts, because we buy in bulk, and small amounts are, just going to cost me more. Plus, I have a tendency, if I buy shiitake mushrooms, and let's say, I'm not selling that one dish that much, and those shiitake mushrooms go bad, well, then I'm throwing away good money. Those shiitake mushrooms away once they go bad. But if I had multiple places to sell shiitake mushrooms, if I had it in a soup and then a salad, or or whatever, a stir fry or whatever, if I had it in a few different areas, so where if I'm not selling one dish that much, I'm still selling the shiitake, or I'm putting shiitake mushrooms somewhere else, so where I'm not going to be having as much spoilage if I only had it on one dish. So making sure you spread out and have, if you're going to have chicken breast, on one item, let's go ahead and have chicken breast on 5 or 6 items. I can, once I have it, I can add it to many things, and that's like adding value, right? And we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. I think I said like a Caesar salad, if you could add chicken to it, or put under your menu, chicken for $1.50 more, shrimp, $3 more, so you can add value. Plus you're selling your shrimp in different areas, so where you're not going to end up having spoiled shrimp, so where if you only have like shrimp cocktail, you know, and no one wants to order shrimp cocktail, at least I've got a venue or an area where I can sell grilled shrimp for a salad or whatever else. So you know, cross utilize is so important as well. Just because it costs me more, or it costs less to buy in bulk than you know, to buy smaller things. So sometimes when you buy in bulk, you know, your costs go down a little bit, and that's something important as well. Simple food cost tools is like a heart monitor for your business. Yes, by monitoring your cost, which is basically when you get high blood pressure, you know, you want to monitor your heart, right? So where you just want to make sure you monitor your food cost, and again, food cost varies, but you know, and we'll kind of talk about you know, different types of food costs. But again, there's an average food cost, but you know, but you always want to kind of try to calculate your true food cost. You want to do you mind reading the last little bit? There are many benefits of food costs, including, can you read those benefits?
Yes. Creates an awareness that food costs will be analyzed closely, and culture amongst the staff that cost controls are important. The people are paying, that means you should pay attention on your prices. It puts the restaurateur in control.
Yep. And it puts them in control and makes them, you know, you need to, people are paying for them, for the items, so you need to really pay attention to the prices, right? You know, and that's so important. There are three important aspects of a food cost: price, recipe mix, and tracking. And that's what we're going to be defining and talking about. Oops. Do you mind reading this?
The menu item pricing, of course, is the owner's responsibility to go out in the marketplace and determine the competitor's pricing, what the market can bear, and to adjust those prices accordingly to remain competitive. The recipe mix involves the ingredient costs, what the food company charges you, so depending on the ingredient cost and the portion you use, that drives the cost of the recipe mix for the menu item. Ongoing tracking provides a daily pulse of the business based on date range, who will give you the food costing based on actual sales.
Thank you. So the recipe mix is the ingredients cost, right? So it's the recipe mix involves the ingredients cost, the ingredients, what it costs, and then what the food, what you're going to be in the cost of those goods, right? In the portion that you're going to be using, right? So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at. A menu mix is a menu that has a balance of basically static. All right, let's see. Why don't you read this one real quick?
Mm-hmm. A menu mix is a menu that has a balanced and strategic developed strategy. What? Okay, so that you have varying and attractive profit margins across the menu. Is an evaluation of your theoretical food costs based upon total items sold for a given period and the margin generated from those items. Menu mix also referred to how the menu items are distributed in the kitchen during service. Menu mix evaluates the flow of menu items. For instance, if you have menu items which come from the grill station, saute station, and fry station, then ideally 1/3 of the most popular items will come from each station during service.
Thank you. So it is evaluating of what kind of, where everything comes from the station, and making sure that, you know, everything is balanced in the station. Let's see. Menu mix, calculating the menu mix, the goal. Let's see. The goal is to measure and compare three things, and that is the food cost is the most important thing, and you need to look at your profit and your margins of what your profit, how much between your profit and what you're buying, and you're trying to figure out, okay, this is kind of the amount I'm buying it for. What kind of profit can I get out of this dish right here? And it's all about the cost, trying to figure out the cost of everything. And like I was saying, when it comes to buying in bulk and all of that, things cost cheaper when I buy it in large quantities, right? So a lot of times people will get that, you know, they'll think, oh, okay, I'm going to buy, you know, if it's cheaper to buy, you know, let's say, you know, 2 cases of chicken, well, then one, you know, people are going to want to, you know, people will buy it, but the issue is you've got to make sure that you can utilize that. If not, you're going to lose money. So making sure that you have a good, you're not always looking at, you know, that kind of price. You need to look at what you can spread out, because no matter what, anytime you have leftover food and you don't utilize it and you throw it away, that's money thrown away, and that screws up your food costs. So you need to really watch that food cost. Do you mind reading this one?
Before we move on, let us look at a few important definitions. Recipe cost, cost of ingredients in a plate. Recipe sales price, price of a customer pays for a plate. Ideal food cost, cost of ingredients used in all plates / total sales. Ideal food cost per serving. Recipe cost / recipe sale price. Actual food cost, ideal food cost - inventory lost. Actual food cost per serving. Ideal food cost per serving - inventory lost per serving.
Thank you. So these are some definitions of just what an actual food cost is. Ideal food cost is basically, you know, and that's the ideal food cost. I mean, that's kind of what you want, you know, and these are just, oops, changing. All right, so a typical food cost is around 20 to 25%, okay? Or, I'm sorry, 20 to 35. I said 25%, sorry. It's 20 to 35%, okay? And that's kind of what we're going to be using, somewhere between 20 to 35%. And I'll show you in the costing. And guys, I want you to, oops, sorry, hold on. Stop sharing, I think. Did I stop sharing?
Yes.
Okay, hold on, I apologize. All right, so I want y'all to know that the math or the calculating is not going to be that difficult. Okay, so please understand that. Don't get up, you know, worked up over that. The calculation and the math portion of this class is not that difficult, but it is one of those things where, you know, you're going to have to look at cost of product, but there's formulas in the spreadsheet that we're going to be using, so where you don't have to be doing much calculating. But you are gonna, you can change your food cost to between 25 or 20 to 35. And it really kind of depends on if you're a fine dining establishment or if you're a fast food establishment. Kind of really depends. And each item might have a different food cost. And we're going to be, and that determines, because of the loss on the product, if you have to peel a potato or whatever else. But here are some US measurements, right? Volume, weight, or unit, right? And we've got volume would be, what would you consider volume to be? Like
milliliters?
Yeah, like liquid type of deal. Volume, like fluid ounces, or any of that sort of stuff. Weight can be ounces, pounds. Units is each. Like 2 eggs, that would be units. 2 units, or whatever else. And then here's some measuring. Tablespoons, fluid ounces, cups, pints, quarts, gallons. You will need to be able, you're going to need to have to, know some of this and manipulate some recipes. But when it says a volume or tablespoons, those are volume measurements right there. The gallon man, right? You got the gallon man, or for a gallon, you've got, here's 1 gallon has 4 quarts, and then that just kind of helps you determine how many gallons, or how many quarts are in a gallon, or how many pints are in a gallon, or how many cups are in a gallon as well. Just a good kind of there you go. Here, these good conversions, because you might have to convert recipes. US measurements, also, did I go backwards? There we go. Calculating a recipe costs. Step 1. You want to read this for me?
List every ingredient in the dish. This includes sauces, seasonings, and garnishes, and even a single parsley leaf or a sprinkle of salt.
Yes. Guys, when you are calculating a recipe, you need everything. Whatever you're putting in there, you need to know. Even a little bit of pinch of salt, a pinch of sugar, whatever you need, because that little pinch you paid for at some point. Maybe you paid for it a month ago, but you still need to pay for it. And the customers need to reimburse you basically for that, right? So you need to know everything that goes into it. Step 2. You want to read this for me?
Calculate the cost of each ingredient. If you get 8 tomato slices out of 1 tomato, which costs 40 cents, then it would cost 5 cents, 40 cents per tomato, divided by 8 slices per tomato, to use a single tomato slice in a recipe. Be sure you use the system used by the ingredient. If the ingredient in the master list is priced by pounds, then you can price your portions by pounds or weight ounces.
All right. So just making sure you calculate, again, if you're only putting, 2 slices of tomato on a burger, right? You still need to figure out how much those 2 slices of tomatoes cost, right? And you need to know, and I need to know as a customer or as an employee, how many, how much that, how big that tomato slice should be, all of that sort of stuff. So I need to make sure that, we cost those things out. Very, very important. Step 3.
Add together the cost of each ingredient. Do not include labor costs. The result is the food cost of the menu item. Don't use unit of measures by volume to calculate cost by weight.
Okay, and that is so important. Okay, so if it says, if it's a volume, liquid volume, right? Do not calculate it as a weight. So if it says 3 ounces of I don't know, 3 ounces of water, make sure it's a fluid ounces, not or whatever else. Make sure it's not like your weight, like an actual weight, because that could totally screw up your costing. Calculating recipe cost. You know what? Let's take a 10-minute break. Let's come back at 8 o'clock.
All right.
Hold on 1 second, guys, and I'll get started. I'm doing attendance. Give me 1 second. All right. Get back to my PowerPoint and we'll get started. And we're almost done for the day. All right, let's see. All right, so calculating recipe costs. Do you mind reading this?
You're not screen sharing, Chef.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. You have to put attention to reflect the real cost of each ingredient. If the ingredient during the manipulation and preparation suffer loss on weight, that loss needs to be absorbed by the cost of the ingredient ready to use. AP cost equals as purchased, EP cost, and EP equals initial cost by weight divided by final weight. Example, sirloin steak, AP equals $12.99 by pound. You by 5 pounds a piece equals $64.95. After you clean and trim the piece equals 4 pounds. EP equals $64.95 divided by 4 equals $16.24 by pound.
Okay, so basically once you clean it, right? Once you clean that meat up or whatever else and get it ready, you basically have 4 pounds instead of 5 pounds, right? But you started off with a 5 pounds, so that so you lost $16.24 that you did not cover. So that's got to be absorbed into that cost as well because you paid for it, right? So you paid that $16.24. Maybe that's fat, maybe that's things that you needed to get rid of, but no matter what, you paid for it, you still have to cover that cost. So you threw away or you're not utilizing $16 worth, but you still paid the $64.95 for it. So you still need to, so you have to basically get that money back into it. So that's what people don't understand, and when they, well, I bought it for this amount. Well, yeah, you did, but you're only using half of it. So, and you're throwing the rest of it away, or you're, not utilizing it. So you still have to cover that cost. And that is very hard for people to understand that. Let's see, determining menu price. Again, you need to determine the menu price. Determining menu price is part of you costing out the recipe, but also, it determines who your client, can your clientele afford that? So understanding what your clientele can afford, it helps you determine what you need to buy, what kind of product you need to buy. If your clientele can afford more expensive stuff, then you might are gonna maybe buy higher quality food, so that's going to cost more. So you just need, it really determines on the usage, you know, what in all the total utilization of the product. In you know, you never want to price out your employees or your customers. Do you mind reading this?
Your minimum menu price is how you must charge to make the item worthwhile, but you may be able to charge more. What are your competitors charging? By understanding what your competitors charge for similar items, you can gauge what menu prices the community will accept. You do not want to overcharge or undercharge, and you still want to make a profit, but you don't want to scare off business by price gouging. You are going to use the master price list given to you by your instructor as a database for your recipe cost.
Okay, and I will give you and when you get into it, now I'm going to give you a kind of a database of kind of recipe cost or items for how much I don't know, flour cost or whatever else. I'm going to give you all of that. But if you don't find the cost or whatever else, you can always look up on, you know, look up how much it costs at HEB or whatever else. But we'll kind of get to that point. I will show you that in a few minutes. But food cost and portion cost are so important. Or portioning your product is so important. And we talked about that because of, if you over portion, you're then you know, giving away more product than you've costed out for. So you're giving away, you're losing money. So making sure that your food cost and your portion control are really, they go hand in hand, really, portion control and your food costs, because you costed it out to be 2 ounces. Well, if you give 3 ounces, you're screwed. You're losing money. You don't know exactly what you're doing. But we're going to be using around a 30 to 35% food cost, kind of a blanket, you know, 30 to 35%, whatever else. But I will show you that. But that's kind of what we're going to be doing and what's on the average. Determining menu price. Do you mind reading this one? And I think this is the last one.
Yes. Food cost refers to the menu price of a certain dish in comparison to the cost of the food used to prepare that dish. In other words, how much you pay for food determines how much you must charge your customer for it. Ideally, food cost should be 30%. In other words, if your recipe cost is $1 for something, you should charge a minimum of $3.35.
Okay, so you know, and on the average, and this is on the average, and now a lot of restaurants don't run 30% food costs, but that is on the average, 30 to 35% food costs. So that means that you're making, so if it costs $1, you're selling it for $1 or $3.35. So that's 30% food cost. So in that little bit of extra, that's going to go for, that's your profit on that product, but that covers your cost of employee cost, all of that sort of stuff. So that 30% puts in that kind of gives you your profit. So that's kind of what you're looking for. Actually, I lied. There's 2 more. Let's see. I read this one and I'll read the last one. Thank you.
Yes. It might seem like you're charging a lot more than is necessary, but keep in mind that you aren't just paying for the food itself. You are paying someone to prepare it, to serve it, and to clean up afterwards. You are paying for the building in which your customers are dining, all in addition to the actual food costs.
All right, so that's kind of what I was talking about on this slide of that $3 or that $2.35, that profit of $2.35 that you would be getting on this one item. That covers the cost of your insurance, your building, your water bill, your all of those things. So that's why it's so important to make sure you know the exact cost of your items and really make sure that you're covering your costs, because if you don't sell enough items, you're not going to cover your cost. So making sure that you have a good, what they call a menu mix of different items on a menu that will afford you to keep your electricity still going on, right? So you need to be able to sell product and make a profit, so where you can pay your employees and all of those things. Creating the right, right pricing is so important. Now I'm going to show you on the portal. All right, so right here on the portal, do you see where it says costing sheet for CE135, right? So you're going to click on that. Oh, wait. It doesn't exist. Wow. All right. That's weird. Okay, well then I'm gonna have to get it added to there, because that was where the costing sheet is supposed to be. Interesting. All right, well, I'll show you. Let me see if I have. Here is kind of a costing sheet right here. You've got and I have a different one that I'm going to give y'all that the ingredient list is a little bit longer, because this only has a few things, but this is kind of where you're going to use your standardized recipe. Hold on, let me get to, okay, so here's a standardized recipe, right? You're going to take this standardized recipe stuff and you're going to transfer like the quantity and all of that. You're going to put the ingredient down, you're going to put the quantity, and then the as purchased, what you paid for it. And I'll have a list of how much flour is and all of that, and then you'll get the total cost and all of that. But this is what the thing is going to look like. So next week, that's what we are going to be spending all our time working on, costing out our recipes, the recipes that you need to have to me before Monday. And that is your 9 to 10 recipes that you want on your menu. So that, and I will figure out why it's not showing up on the portal and try to get that resolved. But that's kind of, if it's not going to be there, I'll let you know on Monday. I'm going to work on that today. I'm kind of glad I looked at it, but I will get it taken care of. But your homework for today or for this weekend is get that. If you have not finished your standardized recipes, you need to get them done. Okay, have them done by Monday, because for at least about an hour, we're going to sit and we're going to kind of go over, I'm going to go over everybody's stuff, and we're going to spend a little time in the next, this whole next week on costing out recipes. So that's what we're going to be spending our time on next week. So please, please, please have all your recipes made, and then we are going to cost them out. All right. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Be careful. I will see y'all Monday.
You too, Chef. Take care.
Bye, guys. Y'all be safe.
Have a good day, Chef.
You as well.
You too, Chef.
Bye, guys.
Chef?
Yes.
Hi. Okay, so when I finish my standardized recipes, I'm doing it offline right now, but when I finish and upload it to Google Drive, I will send you an email so you know it's in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chef. Have a great weekend.
I hope you have a great weekend as well.